Imagine it's Sunday night. You're looking at all your to-dos and your calendar for the week. Do you think about your family first and what activities and events you have to go to? Or are you thinking about work first? On today's Rainmaker Family show, Shelby and Joe Seeley were on, and they are an incredible CEO power couple that have been in business together through many, many years. And they practically walk you through how to prioritize your family first so that your business can thrive. So check out this week's show. Well, welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. I am so excited to talk to our power couple that is on today, Joe and Shelby Seeley. They have become good friends of ours. They have an incredible background in entrepreneurship and doing life together and working together as a husband and wife team. They have been super successful in the real estate industry and raising up leaders and their own two teenage kids. So welcome, you guys. I'm so excited to dive into your story and who you guys are.
So cool. We're excited to be here with you, Chelsea and Steven. And man, we just can't wait to jump in today and help out your community in any way possible.
Yeah. What we'd love to start with is digging into a little bit of your history. So I don't know if you want to take us back all the way to when you met or, maybe that first entrepreneurial venture. Maybe it wasn't even a business, but what was that first entrepreneurial minded thing you guys did together? I feel like there's nothing that grows a relationship faster than trying to do something in business together, do something like, pioneering together. So take us back. What was that first moment?
Yeah, so it would definitely probably be when I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of have that spirit just kind of within you, that entrepreneur spirit, even when you're born, right? And you could be the kid who's like, hey, I have a lemonade stand. Let me elevate it because now I'm going to have a lemonade stand and a bake sale all at the same time. And so I think we're both like that. Let me tell you something. My husband used to go around as a little kid before I ever knew him, literally selling like fancy rocks. Like he'd find rocks like in people's yards and he'd go around and he'd sell them to neighbors. And I'm like, he's the man for me, man. This guy can sell ice to Eskimos, right? So I think our entrepreneur, attitude and our venture started early, right before we ever met. But definitely when it came to God calling us to real estate. And it was interesting because I felt like the Lord had told me, hey, you're going to go into real estate. I'm going to give you favor there. And that's how you're going to help fund the kingdom and the stuff that you have in your heart. So I looked at my husband. This was probably like 3 years after we were married. I was like, you're supposed to be in real estate because that's how God is going to fund our ministry and our dreams. And my husband's like, okay. Being newly married, he's like, happy wife, happy life, So then he started studying for his real estate license, but we just didn't have peace there. And it wasn't until years later that we realized actually God had called me into real estate. And like I would be the avenue that kind of opened up the door to the real estate and helping to, where we are today and funding our dreams. And so that's part of that entrepreneur.
Yeah, so let me clear up one thing though, right? So just so no one, I wasn't stealing rocks or anything like that from people. So in all honesty, I was 8 years old. I was walking home from school and I found 2 cases of rocks. And think of it this way, that if you ever had those samples that they just throw on your driveway, right? Where there's like 3 little rocks and the business card from the landscaper. I found 2 boxes of those. And I literally did. Shelby's correct. I went door to door. And I'm not actually proud of this. I'm going to be honest with you because I went door to door for like 2 weeks at 8 years old, telling people I was raising money for a nonprofit. And I gave them a free gift. Right? That was here's your free gift, right? You get a bag of rocks. And in like 2 weeks, guys, I raised like over 460 bucks that I was putting in a jar in my room that my mom found. And my mom found this money and was like, oh my gosh, right? You can imagine like 8-year-old little Joe, like my mom found it and said, where'd this money come from? And I said, Mom, I've been selling rock. And what you might not understand is my mom was an ex-drug addict. And so when I said I was selling rocks and I had like almost $500, she was like, what were you doing? And I'm like, no, Mom. And I showed her like, really, these little shiny pebbles. That's what it was. And I think it's interesting because Shelby and I, when she told me that I should be in real estate, I was willing to just take a leap of faith. I didn't feel like it was what I was supposed to do, but here's what I found out. Sometimes you have to take a step out just to see if it's for you or not. And so, one of the things that's really helped us, Stephen and Chelsea, is our willingness to just take a step and find out if it's the right door or not. Like, we're not worried about failing as long as we're in it together. And then we're not worried about succeeding either, right? Because sometimes people have a fear of success. But as long as Shelby and I have been in unity, no matter what it is that's come our way, we've been willing to step out into it. And I think that's one of the most important things when you're talking about, being a couple in an entrepreneurial endeavor, is it takes a lot of faith. And as long as there's unity there, if you can lose together, you can win together. But if you blame each other, if you start pointing fingers in the loss, right, that's when there's an issue, right? And so that's one of the things that we've kind of found too. And we've done a ton of things. Real estate's kind of just one of them. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
Let me just say this to his mom. On that story, his mom made him donate all that money to St. Jude's.
She did. She did. I got to keep $0 of that money. So it did go to charity, like I said to all those people. But I found out early on that I had an entrepreneurial type spirit.
Totally. Yeah. I was very similar growing up, always finding that side hustle. I don't know. Usually it was to fund some toy or skateboard or something, but it just is like, when you learn that skill of like, I can create money somehow, like it definitely is a powerful skill to learn as a kid. And I know you guys have even done that with your own children, right? You guys have two awesome kids. They're older now, but like, how have you seen them even developing as entrepreneurs? And how have you really stewarded that little spark when you see it?
So it's interesting for us, like, I have a 19-year-old and in this weekend, we had some stuff that we needed done around the house that normally I would just hire somebody, right? We're kind of in that phase now where, I don't know, I just don't have time to do some of the things like the landscaping and that kind of stuff.
Plus, it helps save our marriage.
It does help save our marriage.
Word of advice, just hire a landscaper, a pool person, whatever you need.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise, it doesn't get done and honeydews. And so anyway, so here's what I did, Stephen, kind of a funny thing. We're trying to teach our kids to know their value. And so I told my son, listen, I could hire somebody to do this, or you could go out and you could literally look at the job, look at the scope of what the work is needed, and then bid me an actual price, right? Because that's exactly what I'm going to do with someone else. And so it's exactly what he did, right? So he bid the job. He told me how many hours he thought I was going to take him. He told me what he would need. He did an incredible job. Matter of fact, I've paid other companies to do this job at our house. Like every year I have to have somebody come and we have a hillside. Every year I need it cleaned off. I need the weeds gone, everything. And not only did he do an incredible job, he did the best job I've ever had anyone do.
Wow.
Right. And when he quoted the price, he did not quote a price that was so exuberant that I would just say no chance. Right. But because he did such an incredible job, of course, I was able not only to pay him what he quoted, but I gave him a 25% increase because he finished early and he exceeded my expectations. And so I'll just tell you, as a dad with a 19-year-old, I wasn't doing that always at 19 years old. I was trying to find shortcuts. Right? And in a world where, unfortunately, a lot of kids that age feel like, what's the fastest way for me to do it with the least amount of work? To see him do something that really involved manual labor, which is not his dad's strong suit, and he knows it, right? But he did it, and he did a phenomenal job. And so that's just kind of one way is you want to create ways within like your home. Like there's things that they should be doing just because they're part of the house.
And even as young kids, we would have them do chores, but we would pay them basically like on a commission basis. And like how well they did the job is how well we were going to pay them. And it kind of got them thinking early on, with that entrepreneurship in it. And I think our journey too, they see the ins, the out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they've kind of, they like what they see. And so our daughter, she's 16, and she is like, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. I'm going to work now for the next 2 years. And when I graduate high school, I'm going to buy a duplex. And then I'm going to live on one side and rent out the other. And that one side is going to pay for the whole thing. Then probably a week goes by later and she goes, actually, Mom, how long can I live with you? I was like, well, I'm not sure. Like, we got to talk about this. And she goes, because what I want to do is rent out both sides and have it pay it off early. So if I can pay it off early, then I cash flow. And I'm like, okay, girl, well, maybe you can live with us for a little longer because you're thinking like that. So I think the more they're around it and they see it and they hear the verbiage of it, the more it just becomes part of who they are.
And I think we've also tried to do, we've tried to reward behaviors that we want repeated. Like if it's worth repeating in your child's life, then you should reward it, right? Celebrate the things that you want them to carry on their life as value. So like I have a friend that he literally pays his kid to read entrepreneurial books, right? And depending on the book, like he'll go from one book to another book and it'll be like, okay, that's a $5 book. That's a $20 book, right? But the reality is he's rewarding what he wants duplicated in his children's lives. And so I think many times, like the moment my kid comes to me and takes out the trash, Stephen, and says, Dad, that'll be $5, right? Now we have a problem, right? That's not entrepreneurial, right? So our kids don't come and say, you owe me, right? So we don't want to create the wrong spirit within them, right? And yet at the same time, we want them to think outside the box because unfortunately, I have one who my 16-year-old is a creative, right? So she's already told me she wants to go into an industry where, there's a lot of competitive people, right, in that space. And there's many times they don't make very much money in that space, let's be honest, right? So she's creative and they don't get paid well. But I told her, you can be set apart in that industry. You just have to know who you are and don't undervalue, right, the work that you do. And I have my son who really wants to make a difference in the area of adolescence and mental health, right? And so here's the thing where it's like totally the other spectrum. He's going to go to school for probably, an extra 4 years, right? But he really wants to make an impact and a difference. And one of the things I've told him, right, is come up with creative ways, right? So don't just think, and that's what I think the entrepreneur does, right? They think of creative solutions to big problems. And so for these guys, we've just tried to model it well as parents. They've seen us win, but can I just tell you, they've also seen us fail, right? They've seen us at the top of the mountain and they've seen us digging our way out of a hole. And I think sometimes parents hide that stuff from their kids. And I think it's got to be age appropriate, right? Like, I don't think you guys should be going to Kai like, hey, we took a hit on this last year. But I do think at age appropriate times, you want to bring your kids into the world that you're in, right? Because our world, I tell them this all the time, our world is their world. Why are we doing what we're doing? My kids know at this age now, they're like, listen, if something happens to us, all this is yours, right? And what you do with it will be super important.
Absolutely. How have you guys together, when you're talking about failing, and that's just a part of life. I mean, Steve and I believe that there's nothing is wasted. Like, even if it's considered a fail, like there's something to learn and to grow to push you forward. And I think that you guys probably agree on that as well. But in those times that look like failure or it didn't work out the way that you wanted, how have you guys as a couple first, like, come together and move forward? Because I'm sure there's been like different levels of things not going the way you wanted. And of course that affects your bank account, your marriage. And then the second part of that question is like, how have you brought your kids along in an appropriate way so they're not stressed out like, oh man, mom and dad are stressed out about money again, or in a healthy way? How have you brought them along?
Well, one, I'll say that we don't ever let our kids see us get stressed out about money. Because here's the issue. I feel like if we ever let our kids get stressed out about money, then our kids are looking to us as their source, right? And so I'm not saying we don't have good conversations about money sometimes, but this idea that we're overwhelmed or stressed out, the truth is, Chelsea and Stephen, you guys know us. I know that our source is not us and our own ability, right? So we really do. Like we put our full trust in the Lord when it comes to our finances. And that has been something since I was 16 years old, and God brought what I always call the blonde hair, blue-eyed beauty into my life. Like Shelby taught me some very basic kingdom principles when it came to finances and resource. And so we stay really, really clear to those things. And so like we've learned things like we keep our home base really, really small, right? So like we're not stressing out month to month, and our kids have never seen that. Even in seasons, guys, if I'm really honest with you, where we didn't have anything coming in, our kids have never seen us in debt, not one day of our life. They've never seen us in credit card debt or owing someone something, and that has really we're not boasting in that. That was literally just we follow biblical principle, and we literally have just been able to move through seasons and not let that stress or that overwhelm come in. But Chelsea, I did make a $50,000 mistake once. And the truth is, Stephen, you can imagine you only get to make one of those,
For
right?
sure. Only one.
You get to make one of those in your married life, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it'd be nice if I never made that mistake, but I did get to make a $50,000 mistake once. And it was because I bought into a business venture and I was with the wrong partner. We had the right business plan. We even had the right business model, right? We were making money. Like we were doing incredible. I was literally working 2 days a week in this business model, 4 days a month. And I was multiplying my income at the time by a multiplier of 4 times by working 2 days a week. But the problem was I had the wrong business partner. And I found myself about a year into this business. The business partner was siphoning off our profits, right? And I had to then really look at the books and go, what am I doing? Right. And it was a tough one because I had to come to Shelby and I knew that I couldn't stay in the business. But I also knew that me just saying, hey, you owe me was not going to be good. And so I had to go to my wife and say, hey, I made a mistake. I partnered with the wrong person. And today I need to go and I need to sign the company over to him. I literally released my ownership of the company because I didn't want to get into lawsuits. I didn't want to get into, you did this, I did this. And so it was a $50,000 mistake. But honestly, what it taught me in my marriage, because guys, I was in my early 20s. So again, $50,000 might not be as a big deal today, but back then it was
Way back when.
everything, right? It was everything, right? Like it was all of our savings. We had pushed all of our chips across the table. And I remember that was the time that I really knew that we could win together. And to your point, I don't think we ever fail, but we have gone through seasons where we felt loss, right? And so there was a loss, and we had to grieve that loss, and we had to move forward. But I always think you're either learning, right? So you're either learning or earning. In some seasons, you're doing a lot of learning and not a lot of earning. And other seasons, hopefully, you're doing both, right? And we're hopefully in a season now where we constantly learn so that we can actually earn to the next level. So,
And I mean, that's not to say that we're, like the perfect parents and we never argued about money or it never got it a little heated, fellowship is what we call it, because our kids have definitely seen that piece of it. We just don't stay there, right? We can't live there. And every day we wake up, we can't go back to that place. It's like, okay, let's have this conversation. Let's get a plan and let's move forward. And there's been times as our kids have matured and gotten older that we said, guys, here's kind of where we at. Can you pray too? And can you ask the Lord, like, what are we supposed to do? Can we together as a family make decisions as far as what are our next steps? And because we don't want them to just have to come along for the ride. Like they are part of the family, they're part of the ride. And so we need everyone in unity. And so, and they've seen, and basically what we do is we just come and we pray about it. Everything, every difficult situation, and we invite them into that. Maybe they don't know all the ins and outs and logistics that they don't really need to know, but just bringing them into that. And then they get to see God work too. And they get to see him perform the miracles that he's performed in our life.
That's something we talk about a lot is, in our community, leaning in conflict, like when there's something that comes up, when there's a disappointment, when there's even just a heart, like a wall that comes up, a mental wall or a financial wall or something that looks like something holding you back, right? To lean in, right? The temptation, I think, in our culture is to disconnect, right? When something comes up, like Joe loses $50,000, marriage ends. Like it's just like that's kind of the default, right? That people go to, and maybe there's that, like sometimes the initial reaction is like disconnection, even if it's just for 5 minutes, like you're just like, I need to be by myself for a second, right? But we have really, Chelsea and I learned to protect that connection. Like, how can we connect again and how can we do it as fast as possible, right? And same thing with family, same thing with relationships. Like, how can you lean into conversation and connection? And that's why I see you guys doing so well with your family, even in those seasons. But not only that, I remember you guys were telling us, we were at dinner the other night at a mastermind. You guys are telling us about how you guys even dream together as a family. You dream about vacations together, and it's like a family effort. It's like you involve the family. And so I'd love to talk about the other side of things, like, talked about going through the hard stuff, but also dreaming together about fun things you're doing as family, like scheduling fun into your calendar. How do you guys dream together and involve everyone in that by leaning in?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's super important is we try to teach our kids the first thing that goes on our calendar, right? And this is so important at whatever age your kids are today. The first things that go on our calendar is our family time. It's not our work schedule. It's not mom and dad's business, travel. It is actually our family time. And we just say, listen, we take time every single year. And Shelby and I were talking about this. There's 4 major things on our calendar every single year. And it all starts really at the end of the year, right? Shelby plans normally right after Christmas, right? That week between Christmas and New Year's, we normally get away. Like a lot of times she likes to go to Tahoe.
I mean, so I'm the high achiever. I'm the firstborn. I'm the planner, right? So real talk here, we would go nowhere unless I planned it all. I'm just saying.
Well, no, we would go places, but it would be spontaneous. Like, hey, let's go now, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we don't have a hotel. That's okay. We'll get it when we get there, right? Like I don't ever worry about that stuff.
And so basically, what we've tried to do and kind of model and kind of just built into our family life is getting away, whether it's a beginning of the new year or the end, and just sitting down and talking about, goals. What do we want to achieve in the new year? And can I tell you, for the longest time, my kids would fight this. We would be, whether it's like in Tahoe during the snow or we'd go to the beach, we'd be like, okay, today's the day, like we're going to write our goals for the year. And they're like, oh, we have to do this, and so they would absolutely fight it. And now what I'm realizing over these past couple of years is they actually love it and they enjoy it. And if I didn't do it, like they would still do it. And so we get together, we put together kind of our goals. We have either a word for the year, each of us may, or a verse too. And we have it literally on our refrigerator right now, everyone's goals, just so that they're front of mind, so that they can see, what am I working towards?
And one of the things we kind of added to it, and it's really been awesome this year, is as our kids are gotten older, when you share your goals, you share them with the whole family, right? So whatever your goals are for the year, you share every one of those goals. Like my 16-year-old daughter, she has goals to work out, right? My son, he has goals to make a certain amount of money. Whatever the goal is, we share it on this trip as a family, and we added, hey, okay, how can I help support you in your goal? So we also build in accountability within our family, right? And when they were little, it would be like, I need to read my Bible more. Okay, what does that mean? So we always would teach our kids, like, they need to be SMART goals, right? So they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, right? So we taught them that though when they were like 9, so now they know they can't just say, I want to do this, but have no measurables to it, right? And so that's not a goal, that's a wish, right? Like I'm like, you got to set goals and then ways to actually achieve them. And so we do that first meeting, and then through the year, there's 3 other things that go on our calendar. Number 1, a vacation for the family that mama sets. Like, I don't get to speak into it. I get to go, show up, have a good attitude, have a lot of fun. But one of the things I found out is my wife's love language is quality time, right? And so spending quality time in acts of servanthood are very important to her. And so we just found out that for her, having that on the calendar every year gives her something to look forward to, right? And so she plans one trip that we just know we're going on. Normally it's been 7 days. She's extended it multiple times. I'm going 10 days now. I'm going 14 days.
Well, because as my kids get older, I realize the time with them is shorter, right? we're on the shorter side of time with our kids. And so I'm like, yeah, we're going to do 10 days, 20 days,
Yeah.
50 days, whatever. However long mama can keep you together, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we'll do is we do a family vacation where everybody gets to give their idea of where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And this one I love because when our kids were little, it was super easy. I knew we were going to Disneyland. Like it was like going to Disneyland, and that just meant we had to get ready for Disneyland. But as they've gotten older, like we took a trip to Europe, right? We did a 14-day trip. We took our kids to Spain, and then they did a cruise in the French Riviera. But like that was something that we planned as a family. And this one is super important, Stephen and Chelsea, because our kids, they actually have to do something to earn this trip. Right. And so we always sit down with them and we're like, listen, you're going to have to do your part. And many times for us, their part is really they've got to keep their attitude right and the way they treat people in the family. Right. That's a big one. Like I'm a big proponent of how we treat one another in our home is very important. And then for them, it's a lot of it's school right now. Right. That's really their role. They've got to do their part in the classroom. And then mom and dad will always tell them, hey, we will always do our part. We'll make sure that we can pay for it. We'll make sure that we can get there. And so I love that because now my daughter is like, we're going to Paris. We're going, I'm like, hold up, pump the brakes, right?
She's her mother's child looking at
Yes.
But so the cool part though is that it gives now us as a family. So mom has what she's looking forward to. And then now as a group, we have something on the calendar that we're looking forward to and working towards this year. And then not lastly, but the last one I'll tell you is that Shelby and I put dates on the calendar for us. Right now, normally, like when we were growing our entrepreneurial business, it was one time a year. We made sure that at least one time a year, we got away on an overnight, just the two of us. Right. I can be honest with you now, we have to have at least 4. Right. At least
I try
4.
to do monthly.
She does. She really does. She tries to do monthly, an overnighter where it's just us. And we're in that phase because our kids are old enough that they're home by themselves and it's fine. But it's super important because the one thing that we realize that a lot of people don't talk about is we want to invest in the things that are most important to us, right? And so family time, most important to us. Our marriage, right? Our relationship, like most important to us. And so when we do that and we realize when we get our kids involved in it, my daughter is going to schedule time away with her spouse because she sees the way her dad loves her mom, right? So we're actually modeling behaviors for our kids that we want them to duplicate as well. And I love it when my daughter, this is probably like the best compliment you can get when you have a teenager. I know you're not there yet, but like when your daughter looks at you and your wife and she goes, Dad, relationship goals, right? Like that's what she'll say to me. Like, I look at you and mom and relationship goals.
So
and at
cool.
first I was like, what does that mean? But what it means is I'm doing something right because she's saying
it's actually
that's
hashtag relationship goals.
That's how she says it, right? That's
Yeah.
Another vacation that we do go on every year during the summer is we usually go to Tahoe, which was where I was born. And so it's great because kids already know, like, this is where we're going to go every year. And I've literally taken them to a home that I was born in.
It's a shack, by the way. It's a shack.
Cabin. It's a cabin.
Shack.
No, my family likes to call it a shack, but it's a cabin. It might be small, but it's
my wife was born in a shack in a snowstorm. That is a true story. She had a doula. She was not at the hospital.
Wow.
It was the 70s. It was what people did. I survived. Here I am. I survived. So
that's amazing.
I take them to the beaches that I grew up on. And my hope one day is that they'll take, our grandkids, their kids there one day and be like, look, that's where, grandma was born. And this is the beach that we always would go to. And it's just a constant trip that we've taken for many, many years that I believe that one day, will be part of the legacy that we leave too.
That's amazing. Shelby, I would love to talk to you specifically about, I know we just saw you guys recently. We were having a conversation about, like, now more than ever is this amazing opportunity for women specifically to, like, rise to the occasion as CEOs, as business owners. And Steve and I are all about equipping moms that they are more than just a mom. They can be this incredible wife, mom, not neglecting their kids, as well as is this incredible business owner. And I know you mentor women specifically in the real estate space, but like, what are some of the things that you could pass along to our listeners as far as like that juggling act? Because sometimes it feels a little bit like that. Like, what have you guys done in your own life so that you don't feel this like torn between that? And then what are some of the things that you're teaching the women that you're leading currently on how to do that well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest trap that women get stuck in is the mom guilt, right? And then often we lose identity. We have children, and children are an incredible blessing, but we lose kind of our identity and our dreams and the stuff that we've been passionate about, right? Before we were ever born, God placed like dreams inside of us, and so He wants to see those come to fruition. So we have kids, and we become, wives, and all of a sudden we kind of lose who we are. And then we're like, oh, all we are Johnny's mom or, Joe's wife. And that's what people call us. Hey, aren't you Joe's wife? Like, that was my name forever. I'm like, I actually have a name. But I think we have to make sure that we do not lose our identity in those seasons. And then when it comes to working, what I found working and then, raising kids and having a marriage and doing laundry. I know you guys don't do laundry anymore. I listen to that.
we do not, which is a
Kudos
big
to
blessing.
You. Everybody should do that for sure. But you're making dinner and grocery shopping and all the duties that a mom and a wife has, right? I think that there's this thing that can rise up in us that we just have this mom guilt. And I think it steals who we really are truly made to be. Like when you are doing this podcast right now, it's like, just be there, right? And then when you're with your son, just be there. And don't be thinking about like, oh my goodness, I need to be, putting this funnel together. I need to be working, on the podcast, or I need to be building content. And so that was a great robber of just time and moments. And for so long, I feel like I lived in that place of like, when I was with my kids, I wasn't really with my kids. And now that they're older, I wish that I had just even a moment, a day to go back to when they were younger and just be 100% there. Because I felt like when they were growing up, I was like, oh, but I have this dream in my heart and I really should be doing this and that. And I feel like it's constantly like pulling you and you're in this constant battle, this constant struggle that I don't think that we were ever meant to be. But I do think now is the greatest time for women to rise up with the dreams in their heart. And yes, women, you can do it all because you can get help, right? So we should not be ashamed of even asking for help. Hey, can you help, put this together? Hire the help. You should be okay with that because God's put a dream in your heart. And I believe honestly that He wants to use, just like the Proverbs 31 women, He's used her in great ways. And, she's very entrepreneur. And so we could be just like that. If it wasn't important and not possible, it wouldn't be in the Bible. And so I think definitely that women have a huge calling. And this is kind of our season, our moment to kind of rise up and be like, you know what, we can raise a good family, and we can love our husband well, and we can run a successful business. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nope. But we're not out for, perfection. So
I think that's the biggest thing that I've really tried to do in the last year, especially stepping more into Rainmakers and feeling this like huge pull towards like the CEO hat. I feel that a lot, but I also, want to be fully mom. And I think for me and so many women I've talked to recently, it's really about like carving out the time where it's like you just said, so that you're not with your kids thinking about your to-do list, that you're able to like be fully with them. And so it's a struggle. I don't have it down perfectly, but there are certain days and then certain times during the week where it's like, I'm in business mode and I don't feel guilty that Kai's in right now. And then our second son is doing this other thing with somebody else that we've hired, or it's a family member, or, you could have a friend swap days, where you're trying to get work done. And then when I'm with him, it's like, I don't want to be on my phone scrolling, and it's addicting to like pull it up and look through it. So sometimes I'll just like leave my phone inside and go outside while I'm with him before dinner or whatever it is. But I think that's like the biggest thing for me recently, that I'm like trying to separate the two so that you're not in one world, but thinking about the next,
And I think the takeaway I'm taking from you guys is like, this is an action item, I think, for people listening. is plan your family calendar before your
Mhm.
business calendar.
Yeah.
Like that's a challenge for everyone listening, even for us, because how often do we even just look at our weekly calendar, go,
Yeah.
what's happening this week? We look at all the business stuff
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, now where are we going to sneak in the family? And if you don't, as a high level entrepreneur, if you don't
Yeah.
like calendar it, it's not happening,
Mhm.
So even Chelsea and I, we have a calendar date now. Like we got a date on the calendar. It's not as, sexy and romantic to have it scheduled in Outlook and, all these things, but it happens. Like we actually go on the date
Mhm.
because it's in there, and Chelsea's really been learning that in this last season too. It's like, I need a friend thing. I need a bunch of Kaizen time, which is our son. I need a date with you and, like a dinner party or something. Like there's like certain things where it's like, if we have these things, like she's her tank is filled,
Mhm.
and she's able to actually run the business at a higher level because she's not feeling pulled like I'm low on these things that I
Mhm.
I have a desire for: community, family, connection, all those things. Sometimes we try to fill those holes with the business and it
Mhm.
doesn't satisfy, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a challenge I think that we're going to take on, is just like, when we look at our weeks, let's go first, where's the family time? Okay,
Mhm.
and if we need to move meetings around because this week is feeling a little heavy and less family time than we desire, then let's move stuff around. We own this thing,
Mhm.
Sometimes I think we forget, as like self-employed entrepreneurs, that we actually control the calendar, and sometimes it just takes over.
We fall into the fact that it owns us, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, what just happened all week? And then we miss the moment, right? At the end of our life, it's going to be the time that you guys spend together, the time that you spend with your kids, but time you spend with your family, that's really going to matter the most.
Well, I think it's super important too that there's times where Shelby is focused, right, in the business that we run, right, where she has to be there doing it that I don't, right? So those are also times that when I'm doing my calendar, Stephen, I might book family time with dad. It might be movie morning with dad. It might be coffee or donuts. It might be dads driving their daughter to school. So it's also realizing that one of the ways you as a partner can support your partner is that when she's not there because she has to do something in our business, that she knows, hey, I'm going to actually be with Jules at that time, or I'm going to be with Tyler at that time. I'm going to get to pour into them what you need to have, right? So it's not always like, we've learned this too. So it's not always just the two of us with the kids. That's great. But they need mom time, they need dad time. And then we've got each other's back, right? So, like, we literally had to teach our kids. And then we also had to teach those that we do business with. When you get Shelby, even if Joe's not present in the room, you get Joe too. Like when you get Joe, even if Shelby's not there, you get Shelby too. Like I would teach my kids when I would go around the world, and I've had the privilege to travel around the world, both for business and ministry. And I would always teach my kids, when I'm not with you, it's because you sent me. Like as a family, we do everything that we do it as a family. And so I think when you have that mindset, you realize that I never had to feel guilty and I never wanted Shelby to feel guilty. I used to tell Shelby years ago, because yeah, people used to say, oh, you're Joe's wife. And I would tell her all the time, listen, I will carry your purse anytime. And kind of what that means is simply this: I have no problem walking behind my wife, right? And supporting her and loving her. I have no problem taking a back seat to what God wants to do in her life. Matter of fact, what I found is in our marriage, there are times when I take a back seat, it's better for our family, right? And there are times that Shelby will come and say, nope, nope, you need to step up there. And there are other times where we step up together. But no matter whether people see just you, Stephen, on a podcast, or they see you on a video, or Chelsea, they see you and not him, just remember that's the way God sees us. When they get you, they get both of you, right? And so there's that dynamic duo that you can actually do more together than you can separate.
Powerful. So good, you guys. We loved at the end of these shows to just do a little bit of dreaming forward with you. So as you guys are looking at the future,
Mhm.
of the Seeley family, the future of, the entrepreneurial things you guys are stepping into, what are some of those dreams of your heart that you're like, man, I would love to see this. I would love to step into this. We're feeling led into this thing. What are you guys excited about coming up soon or coming up in the future? Let us know.
Yeah, so we're excited. We're working on basically a business right now, and kind of in regards to marriage, helping entrepreneur couples in marriage and in family. And so we're working together on that business to put that together. And then also, I always love to grow my real estate community. And, I coach kingdom women in real estate to find financial freedom and flexibility within their schedule. And then my husband has a huge dream. Dave, tell him what that dream is.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. When I was 16, this dream just fell into my heart. And is I want to see 1 million people literally discipled in the kingdom of God. Right. And it's so interesting, without getting deeper into it, what it really means is I want to see people fulfilling their God-given purpose, what they were actually created for. And so the cool part is, when you think about that, it's not just in business, it's in every area of life. And so we literally, part of the reason why we are connected in even some of the masterminds that we're in with you guys, and in some of the communities that we're involved in, is we just want to help people find out who they are and be fully who they were created to be. And so we're working on some things with that. And actually, we're super excited. Honestly, there's Shelby and I are doing so many things. This can be the danger in entrepreneurship, is we're super excited about so many things. We feel like we're only touching a couple things. So it's taking longer to get things move forward. And so I'm also excited about God just giving us some clear focus this year, right? So that we're not spinning our wheels, spending our time on 20 different things, but we're really starting to narrow those things down to go, this is the season for this. And so we're excited about that.
And I always think we talk about our legacy too, right? So even though our kids are 16 and 19, we always talk about one day when we're grandparents, we're going to do this and we're going to have this in place. And I think it's important just to even dream further. Like, this is what we want our legacy to look like. This is what we want our life to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, which we've always done in our marriage. Even at the beginning, we'd be like, in 5 years, we want to own a house. In 10 years, we want to own a business. And so we continue to do that. And I think it helps kind of push us on, and we have a clear picture for what we want in the future.
And I think when you have a shared dream that you both buy into, I just want, like, this has happened for us since Shelby and I met when I was 16 and she was 17. We got married when I was 19 and she was 20, right? And so, like, I've literally been chasing this girl down for years, right? But the reality is this: when we have a goal, a vision, a God dream that we come into unity on, it's going to happen. Many times it doesn't happen in the timeline that we set, right? But can I encourage, like, all your listeners, if you have a goal that hasn't happened in the timeline that you set, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, right? Keep pushing towards the goal. Keep pushing towards the dream. And there's some things that Shelby and I, when we look back at all those years of writing down our goals, it's amazing, Stephen and Chelsea, how many at the end of the year we get to check off, right? And it's because they're a shared goal. They're a shared dream, and we're actually working together to accomplish it.
Wow. So good. I know that listeners, you guys are leaving this podcast with some inspiration, but not just that, but action, and that's what we always encourage our people, our community to do, is take action on this podcast. What is that thing that's jumping out at you that you're like, I'm going to make this part of my life now, because these two carry something that you guys can just feel it. It's powerful. It's family, it's marriage, it's business. And it's for you if you're listening to this show. So if you know someone who also is an entrepreneur, running a family, having kids, wanting to raise their kids with this type of mindset, share this episode with them. We would love that. And I know Joe and Shelby would love that as well. So thank you so much for being here. How can you guys connect with you online? What's like the best place to find you guys? I know you got your hands in different things for sure. And so we can keep the show notes updated with updated links as they come out. But as of now, is there anywhere you want to send people?
Yeah, so they can follow us, just Joe Seeley at Facebook, Shelby Seeley on Facebook, and then Instagram, same as well as Remodel Your Marriage, both on Instagram and on Facebook.
Remodel Your Marriage. I love it.
That.
So good.
We're working on some trademark stuff there. You know, that's the thing about being an entrepreneur, right? So that name may change a little, but right now it's Remodel Your Marriage.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, you guys. We love you. And we will see you guys in the next episode of the Rainmaker Family Show.
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thanks, guys.